Good day to my fellow students and also to the teachers. Before anything else, I would like to introduce myself. I am Adrian Ibusay Laput from Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Social Studies 1. And I am from the Group 5, and our assigned topic is all about Neo-Behaviorism, Tolman's Purposive Behaviorism, and Bandura's Social Learning Theory. So, let me introduce to you first my fellow reporters. And now, let us go back to discuss the main topic, which is neo-behaviorism. So neo-behaviorism is a behavior cannot be fully understood simply in terms of observable stimuli and reactions. Neo-behaviorism introduces mediating variables into the behavior-stimulus response scheme. On the other definition, it is a branch of psychology that bases its teachings on the idea that people learn their behaviors by watching others and then imitating them. So the concept of neo-behaviorism is the concept of adopt, adapt, and adapt. Therefore, students or children learns through observation. So they imitate what they have seen or heard until it will serve as the knowledge. So it focuses more on behavioral conditioning and cognitive than other schools, which may be why it has been less popular recently. So, neo-behaviorism in learning today. Neo-behaviorism in education is used to understand how people learn and what they need to be successful. So the concept of this theory is also to or guide us to help our decisions to be successful and understand how we learn. So we all know that we all have a distinguished or different kinds of learning styles, and that's why this theory helps us to enable to have a guide on how to be successful one day. So it can help teachers create a plan for each student which will lead to more successful for the individual and the class. So other uses include teaching students to use self-talk as a way of regulating their behavior. So teachers can encourage their students to use the concept of self-talk or talking to yourself, for example, in a mirror. So as a way of regulating their behavior or reflecting on what they have done or what they will do in the future. So creating an environment that is conductive or conducive for learning, such as by providing positive reinforcement and clear instructions. So neo-behaviorists believe that it's important for teachers to set up clear expectations and provide feedback so students can figure out what works best for them. So before a teacher starts with their class, the teacher should have an objective or set goals or rules and regulations in order for the students to expect what could be happening or what they will learn inside or during the class, and also provide some feedbacks from the students for for testing their knowledge gained, so that the students will know or the teacher will know if the students are very attentive in the class or listening well to the teacher. So neo-behaviorism example, the behaviorists believe that the environment is responsible for all behaviors. It is a type of learning theory that states that a person learns by associating stimuli with responses. So we associate stimuli with responses through the interaction or conversation we have through, for example, talking to teacher to students. So we learn from them, or we students learn from the teachers as we go on with the interaction in our classes. Another example of neo-behaviorism is it is applied to children, which emphasizes rewards and punishment rather than explanations or reasoning. So children at their young age learns through observation. So with that kind of concept, it emphasizes rewards and punishment. So if the children will do good deeds. So for sure they will get rewarded or they will be rewarded. So if they do bad deeds, they will be punished as that kind of consequences. So it is rather than explanations or reasoning. So they develop the ability to explain or reason as um, they do mistakes or they commit mistakes along the way. Behaviorism has two other subtopics, which is Tolman's Purposive Behaviorism and Bandura's Social Learning Theory. So under the Tolman's Purposive Behaviorism, it has four other important topics, which is the goal-directedness, cognitive maps, latent learning, and intervening variables. Meanwhile, Bandura's social learning theory has also have four important topics, which is the general principles, contemporary social learning perspective, cognitive factors, and educational implication. Two other subtopics will be reported by my fellow reporters. So thank you very much and to be continued.
Good day everyone, I'm Chari Ibordo. Today I will discuss about purposive behaviorism. Purposive behaviorism has also been referred to as style learning theory, and it's often seen as the link between behaviorism and cognitive theory. Tolman's theory was founded on two psychologists' views, those the Gestalt psychologists and those of John Watson, the behaviorist. Tolman stated in this sign theory that organisms learn by perusing sign to a goal. Learning is acquired through meaningful behavior. He stressed the organized aspect of learning. The stimuli which are not allowed in are not connected by just simple one-to-one switches out to the outgoing response. Tolman's form of behaviorism stress the relationship between rather the stimulus response. He said that a new stimulus becomes associated with already meaningful. And there are five key concepts of Tolman's purposive behaviorism. First, learning is always purposive and goal-directed. Second, cognitive mapping routes. Third, latent learning. Fourth, the concept of intervening variable. Fifth, reinforcements and essential for learning. First is learning is always purposive and goal-directed. Tolman asserted the learning is always purposive and goal-directed. He held the notion an organism acted or responded for some adapted purpose. He believes individual to more than merely response to stimuli. And they act on beliefs, attitude, changing condition, and they strive towards goal. Tolman saw behavior as holistic, purposive, and cognitive. Second, cognitive map in rats. In this important experiment, one of group rats was placed a random starting location in a maze but was always in the same location. Another group of rats had a food placed in different location which always required exactly the same pattern of turn from their starting location. The group that had a food in the supposedly demonstrating that they had learned the located rather than a specific sequence of turns. This tendency to learn location signify that rats somehow form cognitive maps. He also found out the organism will select the shortest or easiest path. Third is it is a kind of learning that remains or stay with the individual until needs. It is a learning that is outwardly manifested at once. According to Tolman, it can exist even without reinforcements. He He demonstrated this in this experiment wherein rats apparently learn the maze by performing a cognitive map of the maze, but manifested this knowledge of the maze only when they needed to. Fourth, the concept of learning variable. Intervening variable are not readily seen but serve as determinants of behavior. Tolman's believed that learning is mediated or influenced by expectation, perception, representation, needs, and other internal or environmental variable. And the last is reinforcement not essential for learning. Tolman concluded the reinforcements in initial for learning, although it provides incentive for performance. In these studies, he observed a rat was able to acquire a knowledge of the way through a maze, to develop a cognitive map even if the absence of reinforcements. And that's all. Thank you.
Before I formally start my discussion, I would like to introduce myself first. By the way, I am Fepa Ilaga. You already heard, and I think you already have an idea about the Purposive Behaviorism by Edward Tolman, and it was already introduced by my groupmate Chari Obordo. And now, let's move on to the Social Learning Theory by Albert Bandura. But before that, we will first recognize who is Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura is an influential social cognitive psychologist who is perhaps best known for his social learning theory, the concept of self-efficacy, and his famous Bobo doll experiments. He is a professor emeritus at Stanford University and is widely regarded as one of the greatest living psychologists. Social learning theory. When we say social learning theory, it focuses on the learning that occurs within a social context. It considers that people learn from one to another, including such concepts as observational learning, imitation, and modeling. The first concept is observational learning. When we say observational learning, it is a method of learning that consists of observing and modeling another individual's behavior, attitudes, or emotional expression. For instance, a child learns how to play a game while watching others. By listening, paying attention, and sharing play experiences, child can learn. Now let's move on to imitation. Imitation is central to the social learning approach of Canadian-born American psychologist Albert Bandura. His investigations showed how much human behavior is learned through imitating another individual who is observed receiving some kind of reward or encouragement for a behavior. And the third one is modeling. Modeling is a theory that stipulates that we learn to behave in certain ways by watching others do what they do. For example, children use modeling to learn how to use utensils or tie their shoes. Psychologists have always been fascinated with how human beings learn and the complexities involved in the process. Behaviorists propose that learning is derived from one's interaction with the environment. Now, Canadian psychologist Albert Bandura came up with the social learning theory to help us understand how people learn. Let's move on to the 4 principles of social learning theory. The first one is people can learn by observing the behavior of others and the outcomes of those behaviors. Second, learning can occur without a change of behavior. Behavior says the learning has to be represented by a permanent change in behavior. In contrast, social learning theorists say that people can learn through observing alone. The third one is cognition plays a role in learning. And lastly, social learning theory can be considered a bridge or a transition between behaviorist learning theories and cognitive learning theories. According to social learning theory, learning new skills or behaviors come from, first, directly experiencing consequences of using those skills or behavior, or second, the process of observing others and seeing the consequences of their behavior. According to social learning theory, learning can also influence by a person's efficacy. Self-efficacy is a person's judgment about whether he or she can successfully learn knowledge and skills. A person's self-efficacy can be increased using several methods. First one is verbal persuasion. Second, logical verification. Third, observation of others, modeling and past accomplishments.
Good day, everyone. I am Shelmy Mokas. Now, I am going to discuss about cognitive factors in social learning. Social learning theory has cognitive factors as well as behaviorist factors. There are 5 cognitive factors of social learning. First, we have learning without performance. Bandura makes a distinction between learning through observation and the actual imitation of what has been learned. This is similar to Tolman latent learning. So meaning, cognitive social learning theory suggested human learns behavior by observing others and choosing which behaviors to imitate. The second cognitive factors in social learning is cognitive processing during learning. Social learning theorists contend that attention is a critical factor in learning. So meaning, attention allows us to plan or preview, monitor, and also regulate our thoughts and actions. Third, which is expectation. As a result of being reinforced, people from expectation about the consequences that future behavior are likely to bring. They expect certain behaviors to bring reinforcement and other to bring punishment. The learners need to be aware, however, of the response of reinforcement and respond punishment. The fourth cognitive factor of social learning is reciprocal causation. Bandura proposed that behavior can influence both the environment and the person. In fact, each of these 3 variables, the person, the behavior, and the environment, can have influence to each other. Okay, the last one, we have modeling. There are different types of model. There is a live model, an actual person demonstrating the behavior. And there can be also a symbolic model, which can be a person or action portrayed in some other medium such as television and computer program. Okay, next. Condition necessary for effective modeling to occur. First, we have attention. The person must first pay attention to the model. Second, retention. The observer must be able to remember the behavior that has been observed. The third condition is the ability to replicate the behavior that the model has just demonstrated. Okay. This means that the observer has to be able to replicate the action, which could be a problem with a learner who is not ready developmentally to replicate the action. The last one, we have motivation, the final necessary ingredients for modeling to occur. Learners must want to demonstrate what they have learned. Remember that since this 4 condition, different people will reproduce the same behavior but different belief. Effects of modeling on behavior. Modeling teaches new behavior. influence the frequency of previously learned behavior. Modeling may encourage previously forbidden behavior and also increase the frequency of similar behavior. That's all. Thank you.